Um, all right, I think this is it. Let me just.
Wait, is it like doing it?
It's um it's not
Oh,
live yet.
okay. We have like 2 seconds.
Yeah, cool.
What the heck?
Okay.
Why did it load Lisa V. Lava's talk? Does
Yeah,
it
it
mean like
does that. Just exit out. Okay, we're live. Great.
Awesome. Right on time.
stressful?
Great. Yeah, and just Shoshana, remember
Yep.
that whatever view you're in is what the people on YouTube see. Yeah. Okay. Great. Welcome back, everybody, to our zFestival guest artist talks. I feel like that was me doing like one of the promotional videos, and that's not what we're doing here. We actually have David Byrd-Marrow with us today. Um, I'm just going to read a little bit of his bio. David is an Atlanta native and the solo hornist for the International Contemporary Ensemble. Um, and He is talking today about performing as a solo performer on an instrument that doesn't have a lot of solo repertoire. And I believe he's writing some stuff. I believe he's going to talk about extended techniques. It's very excited to have you here, David. I'll turn it over to you now and take it away.
Okay, great. Um, all right. Well, I'm excited to talk to you guys. Thanks, by the way, for everybody coming to listen. And It's nice to see those of you who I've already worked with on the pieces that you're working on. Um, and the reason I'm excited is because I feel like this headspace that I've been in is coming in sort of an organic way, and it couldn't be at a more useful time. Um, I've noticed a lot of my colleagues and students over the past 4 or 5 months sort of really struggling for ways to like make music. I feel like we all have actually been struggling a little bit with this kind of adversity of not being able to know how close we can be to each other and um, playing things online, and then also for the past, what is it, 2 months now, there's been an additional complicated layer, at least for me, to sort of, and I think for everybody, to sort of actively be factoring in the complications of what we do as classical musicians, socio-politically, et cetera, et cetera. And so, it's kind of put me in a place where um, I've needed I've needed this space, and the space has sort of been made uh, for me, and the timing has been right to find expression from within. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I felt like I should maybe talk about how, like, my background and just like how I got to where I am right now mentally. So, like Peter said, I'm from Atlanta. My father was a jazz horn player, which is already kind of like what. And he's also my elementary school band director. So he wasn't like out like really, it wasn't his main thing, but he was doing it quite a bit. And he played the second trombone book in big band in Atlanta. It was the Clark Atlanta University Alumni Jazz Band, and I think it also had students in it. But I think it was a way for them to sort of just like hand select the best people they could, because they did get people coming through Atlanta would often play with them, and quite heavy hitters like Ella Fitzgerald and Dizzy Gillespie, and just the list goes on. I think there's a picture of Clark Terry holding me as a baby. I think something like that. And yeah, this is all just to say I was playing trumpet at the time, but I was getting used to hearing the horn outside of its traditional role, right? And so I eventually switched to horn because my dad convinced me that I was good at horn. I later found out that he was not correct, but I went to, a proper teacher, Richard Dean, who was in the Atlanta Symphony at the time, and I guess he made me a little bit better, and so that set me on the French horn path, right? And so some of you are gonna sympathize with me on this, but the instrument you decide to play will determine your path to a certain degree. And because French horn doesn't really belong to too many genres or demos. It's kind of set like what you're gonna do, and there's a quite a large quite a large weight of just like indoctrination of like, oh, this is what horn players do, and then you hear about like just a couple of outliers. In fact, since I'm talking about it, I just bought a book that I should have read a long time ago about one of those outliers named Willie Ruff, who until I think like a couple of years ago was on the faculty at Yale, not for horn, but something a little bit different. But he was a horn player and had kind of a unorthodox path. So like they just say, and then people like those people like that when I was especially in undergrad when all we were doing was rehearsing and practicing Till Eulenspiegel and Brahms. Um, People like that seem like cosmonauts or something. Like they seem like, oh well, like what are you doing? Um, and that's just some of that is youthful ignorance, but some of it is very specific to horn in that it's a difficult instrument. A lot of people sort of drop off early. I can't tell you how many conductors I know that used to play horn. Um, and they were smart. They stopped doing it. If I was smart enough, I probably would have bailed also. Um, but that there's enough for us to do an orchestra, and there's enough sort of like attraction to what's there. And like I said before, enough people sort of dropping out that if you stick with it and you like kind of like eat your vegetables and get to a certain level, you can you'll find a place, and that place will most likely be you playing only 150 years worth of music, but it's all really fun. I mean, I always have to put out this caveat at some point that I love Brahms. I don't mean to like put Brahms out as like this like um, you know harbinger of oppression. I just kind of wish that um, more had been made available to me earlier, and I feel grateful that it's been made to me later, which is part of the reason, and it's a big reason that I feel like, especially with my horn students, but then also a lot of other students, I feel like I need to just make them aware of this. Like, no matter how out of the blue and how left field some of the stuff might be, just make them aware of like a lot of the other stuff as early as possible. Um, so back to, what's sort of getting me here. So I graduated school and I stayed in New York, and that was really sort of where this thing that was my reverse education kind of started, where I wanted to eat. So if anybody called and they wanted me to play notes on a French horn, I was like, yes, I will do that. And luckily, I didn't have any sort of prejudice about like what I was going to play. I even now to this day, like, when I'm playing experimental music, I have horn colleagues that are just like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on over there? And I'm sure, and I'd like to hear from you guys later about like how it applies to other instruments. But I feel like French horn is simultaneously like one of the most it's stuck in the mud as far as like progress and looking outside of like these boxes of tradition, for lack of a better word. But you know, we'll get to that. So, anyways, long story short, one of those gigs was a Mozart wind quintet, and one of the players was Josh Rubin, and Josh is a clarinetist for ICE. He's a former artistic director, and we were just doing a gig, and that's how I met Josh. And my first ICE experience was just another gig, right? And the reason I got it was because you know, it's all about timing, right? The reason I got it was because the person who was going to do it got like offered, you know, like a Broadway show or something, like, you know, something that was going to pay more money at the time. And like totally understand that move. And he probably would have, anybody would have made that same move at the time because ICE was unknown. They were just getting started and they were playing challenging music for less money. It was just like, all right, what, you know, of course, but you know, I'm fresh out of school, so I was just like, yeah, sure, give me a gig. Um, but that changed my life because then I, over the next, I've been a nice, oh, 14 years now. Um, and I started coming across people like Claire Chase, who obviously like she started the group, but the reason, other than her starting the group, the one of the reasons I want to mention her and Stephen Schick and Peter Evans are because these three people, if I think about um, what I want to embody a lot of the time when I'm on stage, I want to have this capacity, and it's been sort of like developing over my time with collaborating with them. I have this sort of ideal of like me being able to walk into any situation with just my horn and present uh, a show, for lack of a better word, like present a art happening or something, you know? And you know, with horn, I'm sure if I spoke to someone, even if they didn't say it, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a recital next month." They would, in the back of their mind, be wondering, "Oh, okay, so like, who's your accompanist, or like, you know, who's playing piano, or if you want to skip ahead, you know, to 2020, it's like, oh, what plugins are you using on your processing, you know, like stuff like that. I mean, um, and and no shade on electronic music. It's just the ideal in my head has to do with no baggage other than the horn. So this is just like a concept that I have as a very um, it's a very powerful image of someone who can relate to those around him at a moment's notice and just you know bring a group of people together with this beautiful abstract thing we have called music. Um, and I think it's a for me it's a powerful motivator. And you know when Steve and Claire uh, present their recitals, always you know totally memorized. Not that I think that memory is important, but it is. There's an argument for it because that's also more baggage that you would have to bring with you, right? Like if you have to worry about setting up a stand. Um, but anyways, I digress. So it's become a real sort of sticking point with me that I want. I feel like we haven't opened this can of worms more with French horn, and I feel like there's probably a fair amount of you that wish that you had this to one degree or the other more in your repertoire, right? So I just a couple of the other people I forgot to mention that were very huge influences on my idea of what music is and what like how to communicate it were George Lewis and Pauline Oliveros. George, just in his idea that continues to be evolved on music as a connector socially and you know in all communities and like what it represents globally and historically and he continues to like every time he talks about it it's just more stuff coming out of it so I encourage you if you hear him talk about that it changes especially in the social climate we are in now it really sort of like it I always feel like a breath of fresh air just in the way that he approaches it because it's from a place of collectivity or uh, what's the word I'm thinking or not not wholesomeness but it's well rounded words are hard sometimes and obviously Pauline oh somebody chatted what did, oh yes Pauline woo yeah. So just a little sidebar. So the past week, I've been meeting with some of my students outside. Like we've just been like going to a park and standing spread apart. And because we don't have like stands or music, I've been reading like text scores, like, and then we'll just like follow the introductions. So like Pauline's text scores, and then also we did a couple things from Stockhausen's I forget aus den sieben Tage or something like that. I can't remember. I think it's is that right? You're shaking your head, Laura. Laura, I think that's right.
I mean, I know which pieces you're talking about, even though I
Oh,
don't
I can't
remember
hear you.
that.
Am I
Oh,
muted?
um, oh, weird. Can you hear me now? Huh. I'm,
You
I
guys
should,
can hear? Oh wait, maybe it's on my end. Like the speaker.
can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Hello, hello? Okay,
Yeah. All right. Cool.
good.
I can hear you. It was my
Um,
fault.
oh, no worries. No, I was just saying, I know what pieces you're talking about, but I don't remember the title either.
Okay.
I know the pieces.
Yeah.
And I'm presuming you didn't do the one where you have to like go into the wilderness for 3 days?
No, we didn't. We didn't. We skipped that part. But yeah, so we did a little Stockhausen and Oliveros for horn quartet. And yeah, so anyways, I just wanted to mention them because just going back to this light of like it could have been that I if not for just like this one thing, it could have been that I just you know, played a very small percentage of the music available to me. And okay, so since we mentioned Oliveros, this is a good time to just I want to talk a little bit about meditation. Does anybody here meditate like actively? It's okay. I wouldn't call myself a meditator, although I find myself like sort of snapping out of it and then being like, oh, I think I just meditated. I think that was meditation. But you know, I actively try to meditate maybe like once or twice every couple weeks. So like once a week, I would say. Yeah. But I think I might have mentioned this in one of the coachings, but it's striking me that like, you know, we can all agree that 2020 was kind of bullshit. Or it's like it's still kind of like proving to be a little bit bullshitty. Um, and and I think I mentioned this before, but like like 10 minutes ago, we're talking meditation, meditation, meditation. There was nothing but meditation. Are you meditating? There's an app for it. Like, are you meditating? And since March, I haven't heard any talk of it at a time where like it kind of feels like very useful. Um, and so I, out of sort of like a global desire to just start tearing down this wall of lack of solo rep and like um, and start building on this ideal that I had, and at the same time uh, giving myself a break. I was calling them etudes at first, but I'm not a composer, and so I'm calling them meditations because I need to avoid any pressure that I can put on myself that these should be like good at all. Um, but in the spirit of meditation, in the spirit of giving the horn more more of this type of repertoire, and then also another thing that I've wanted to do for quite a while was, well, first I thought about kind of writing a treatise on how to play the French horn, and then I realized that sounds awful, and I don't want to do that at all. But I sent that link. That link is like a nice start. If you guys saw it in the chat, did everybody see it? Okay. If you didn't, I'll send it later. Also, it's the only thing. It's on my website, but it's not listed, so I just have to send you the link. But I also wanted to create a place for horn players to practice these weird techniques that we kind of all know as horn players that we can do, but maybe haven't really been spilled out into like the common, like the collective consciousness yet. And I feel like maybe there's quite a lot of composers that uh, haven't had the opportunity to have a horn playground where they can just like experiment with all of these things. So I'm trying to balance those three things in these pieces that I've decided to start writing over the past couple months. And so just to recap, they're one part 2020 is bullshit. I need a place to go and really, and I mean I'm saying that in jest, but I've really felt like it was necessary. And so like they come from a place of meditation and stillness, even when they're active. And I'll play one for you in a second. And then also this sort of more academic, what can the horn do? Horn players don't really have a place to practice this. Here's a place for you to practice it. And then also the fact that I hope that some of them will be good enough to sort of be performed alone, as miniatures or whatever, and just add to that repertoire that I want. So before I play, hold on, let me just make sure actually I've spoken for long enough. I'll play something and then maybe I'll go back to talking a little bit. But before I play the first one, are there any questions? Like I tend to ramble, I've noticed. So if anybody has anything they wanna throw in. Yeah.
Well, I thought one thing that I thought was really interesting is what you said about feeling like you didn't want to label yourself as a composer, which is something I sometimes hear from people who are like, they've tried writing a few pieces, but they don't want to like take on that label. And I always, I don't know, find that interesting since I'm on the composer side of things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, God bless you. And then I mean, yeah, you're doing the Lord's work. And the reason, I mean, I think it comes from an academic place, right? So like if I had studied composition formally for let's just say a year or two. I haven't studied it really at all. I've only dabbled in it. Then I would probably feel more comfortable saying that. Um, but but I haven't, and so I don't want to. I feel like it would be harmful to the category in a
No,
way if I called
not at
myself.
all. Like, honestly, so many people out there, like, have such a variety of backgrounds. Like, there's so
Right.
many people who don't have formal training or who, started playing in a band or doing EDM
Mhm.
or all kinds of other stuff that it's like,
Well, if somebody does decide to play one of the pieces that I end up coming up with, they'll sort of be left with no choice but to call me the composer. So then
yeah.
I'll leave that to be their problem. Um,
It's just I hear this from like so many people, or them saying like, "Oh, I tried like doing it once and it wasn't any good." Well, you practice it just like anything else.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I just well, for one, I'm kind of lazy. Um, and then yeah, who knows? Maybe this conversation will be different next year because then I'll have hopefully what will be a sort of small collection of works. Um, but what you're seeing right now is someone who is transitioning from not ever really doing this to now kind of doing it. So,
Yeah, that's
uh,
great.
so, so I got to break a couple bones, I guess. Okay, so let's this first one is very short. You'll see it's a little bit more concrete uh, in comparison to the next one that I'll play. But here we go. Let's see. Okay, and this is the very first one. Just full disclosure. All right. We all getting that? Okay. All right, dancing. Take two. Okay, cool. So, so I just want to talk a little bit about like just like some of the things that I'm having to suss out through this process. So like one of the things is like there's a lot of like different sort of techniques that I want to include, right? But you have to be careful not to include everything with each one. So like I'm trying to make sure that they focus on like one or two specific things. Maybe as they go on, it'll be okay to incorporate more and more, but like I want it to be as accessible for um, as possible for horn players have that haven't done many of this stuff. So I don't know how evident it was in that, but like for you composers, you probably know that we have like a lot of alternate fingerings and like a lot of natural harmonics at our disposal. And so, there's pieces like the Liggity Horn Trio and a newer piece by Jörg Wiedmann called Air, where they really successfully use the open harmonics that are on the horn. But that's sort of like it. Like we don't really have that many more places for it. So that's definitely one of the main things I wanted to do, which was get horn players a little bit more comfortable with these sort of like weird in between notes that we have at our disposal, and just like get that practiced as early as possible. Now, so I'll continue to speak from the perspective of a horn, and if you feel like you want to jump in or not, please do. But I think that one thing we're gonna have to get used to if we want to present ourselves alone in this way is I'll just speak from my own sort of feelings. I'm having to let go of this concept of like what the audience's expectations are as far as like what I'm going to present. Um, I'm classically trained, so like I have this there's sort of like a stigma of like the presence of the demand of virtuosity and like what type of virtuosity. There's a very specific brand of virtuosity that I have to sort of like push to the side a little bit because it can get in the way of creating the type of music that I want to create. I'm saying this and now I'm realizing maybe do any of the composers here like do you feel that at all when you're writing? Is that a
I do.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to
Um,
elaborate on it, but like it's definitely something that I think about a lot when I'm writing music is like uh, how much do you want to cater to the demand of virtuosity? Like how much of it is like something that's musically like relevant to the piece and how much of it is just like, oh well, I have a really good player and I want to give them something to do, or I want to show that I know how to incorporate these kind of virtuosic ideas into music. Especially like I also notice in other like composer performers who write for themselves, they'll like throw in like every trick in the book and it's like, okay, but that doesn't serve the piece. So it's that maybe sounds a little bit too critical, but like yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be thought about, I think.
mhm. Yeah, no, I think it's a real thing, and just a sort of a sidebar. At ICE, or we're calling it the International Contemporary Ensemble. Sorry, I have to get used to that. Um, Over the past, I would say like 3.5 years now, we've been doing like some pretty aggressive work on just like inclusion and social justice, which is like when I was brought into the group, I didn't foresee this at all. It was just like, oh, I'm here to play music, and it's turned out to be like this really important and beautiful part of what we do. And and you know, I one without getting too deep into the water, one of the things that like I'm really sort of like and have been sussing out over this time is like um what is the definition of virtuosity in a meaningful way? Because it comes up a lot when we're talking about inviting new members to the group, right? If we have an open space and we need to bring someone in, there is sort of like, and and this is on a micro, but I think in classical music, it's also sort of on a macro level. There's this, well, like, like how good are they, right? Like, what does that mean? Okay, so like, how good are they? We all have sort of an idea of that, but I think what that boils down to is like this sort of narrow idea of virtuosity. And so like it's been interesting, but it's also been a challenge for me to like open up that and try to identify this that can come in other ways than what I'm used to like acknowledging as uh, virtuosity, right? Um, and that ends up like really sort of like resonating with stuff like this when I'm composing because you know I know what is hard on horn technically. How important is that to creating a musical message? Um, I'm gonna let that hang for a second while I look at the chat. Oh, what piece were you talking about? Sorry, um, Seamus.
Oh, it was just something that I wrote at a summer festival a few years ago.
Oh, I
And
see, I see.
I got that feedback from it from a
This
couple
one
of
part is
people
too
who will remain on.
easy. Oh my gosh. This horn part is too easy. Be insulted. Wow, man.
Just thought that seemed apt from what you were saying, as to exemplify that sort of mindset of pressure for necessity
Gosh.
and virtuosity.
Oh man, I wish I was insulted more often.
I mean, like, I guess on this subject, I often end up writing things that are somewhat tricky just because of like the kind of stuff I like, the kind of stuff I end up writing, but it's not like I'm trying to make something hard for the sake of making that hard
Hmm.
or being like, oh, I need to use all these fancy techniques to prove that I'm like a composer or whatever. Because, like,
Hmm.
no, I do not agree with this.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's an interesting thing that's sort of come up for me in doing this. And that also translates like it's sort of it's the same two parts of the same conversation, which is back to what I was saying, just like this demand of what you're demanding from the audience, right? You're demanding a different thing than if you were to play Paganini. And I think as long as like we've just made that sort of like made aware of that, I'm going into like this other space that is not so much of a, showpiece, which I think we're all kind of ready for. I think we're all sort of like I think we've reached peak Paganini. So so I think we're all ready to sort of like take what we have uh, whole hog and pick from that and try to make or at least I am make music that sort of is trying to connect, you know. Um, but it also, like I said, could also just be influenced by like the times, um, and also like just my appreciation of simplicity, right? Not to say you can't have something technically virtuosic and be simple, but and in fact on horn that is sort of like one of the one of the harder things to do is to be still. Um, oh, what do I want to say? To Paganini Peak. That's right. We're standing on the top of Peak Paganini right now. Um, okay, so I'm gonna play something that's like a little bit different for you guys. Yeah, guys, I don't want to throw any shade at Paganini. It's so hard to do this without like sounding like I'm Like I'm so done with that. But I mean, yes, I'm done with it, but like I still, I guess I'm just trying to sort of like open the other hand. Paganini's over party. Okay, so really quickly, I'm gonna show you something just because in the spirit of like um, the meditative vibe, I can't show both at the same time, but I want to. You won't be able to make any sense of this, but it's like I- I've been writing in a way that's purposefully abstract, um, because I want to maximize interpretation. So like I feel like before you before you hear this, I just want to show this to you really quickly. So the last thing I played for you was sort of like more on the like exploring like the false fingerings and the open harmonics of the horn. This one is more on multiphonics. Um, and it's I'm trying to keep it simple because I want it to be accessible also. Um, there's a lot of room for this stuff to get a little bit intense and like really tricky. And so I don't want it to be out on an island, uh, out on weird French horn person island. Um, so here, I'll just show you. So this is a this is just like the draft. It's beautiful, right? And it actually has changed order in the way that it happens. But the bottom line is the voice, and the top line is horn. Um, and it's unmetered, but I've tried to make it with like relative note lengths. Um, so anyway, this is just so you know where it's coming. Oh, and I also at the top I wrote Anton and Alvin just because um, I don't know, maybe you'll be able to tell, but like some of the harmonic at a point it sounds kind of Brucknery, but then like the beating is a little bit more Lucier. Um, so I don't know. Okay, so stop share.
David, there was a question in the chat on that. Was the horn transposed there?
Yes, the horn. So actually the voice is transposed.
The voice is transposed.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is the third one that I've done so far, and this is a singing meditation. Singing, take two. Cool. So that's just like a little example of, what I'm kind of doing right now. Um, awesome. Thanks, Shoshana. Um, just on this. Oh, sorry, Peter. What were you gonna say?
Just a quick technical question on that. When
Yeah.
you were doing the multiphonics, were there points where you were singing below the pitch you were playing?
Yes,
Okay. And there were also points where you were singing above the pitch you were playing.
that's right. That's right.
Fascinating.
In general, it was harder for me. It's harder for me to sing below the pitch I'm playing. Um, but I don't know. It just depends. I'd like to eventually make these adaptable for different voice ranges. There's only one piece I know of that has done something like that, and it's a piece called Poyo Poyo. It's actually on my website. It's on my bio page though. It's not on the media page. He has a version for a higher voice and lower voice, and because the very end is a chorale. Very cool. You should. I would definitely. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to check out my recording, but like definitely look into it because it's pretty cool and it's based on an anime cat. I mean, it doesn't get any more fun than that. So, um, thank you, Seamus. I know, right? I'm all about like, why are we recording stuff in quiet circumstances? I'm gonna go to the beach and record. I don't need to.
Totally.
Oh, Julian, it's based on an anime cat. I think if you Google Puyo Puyo anime, you'll find out. Uh-oh, we're leaving. We lost Lara. I really right up your alley. All right, well, yeah, you definitely have to listen to it now. Um, I really want a dog. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Okay. Um, yeah, that cat. So, so yeah, I'm finding that composing for myself is it's turning out to be very important. And so if there's one thing that I would say in this entire talk to everyone who's not a composer, um, I really, I really, I want to encourage you to do this. It's very liberating. And the funny thing is like, so one of the major things that like helped convince me to do something like this was I feel like I'm a pretty good interpreter of like I don't know, I've played like a lot of new music and like things that like, because we're basically all we're doing with music that's just being written is we're testing it, right? Like we're seeing like, oh, how does this go? And so like I convinced myself that I'm a pretty good interpreter, and I can really get across what the composer was trying to do. So if I can do that with other people, then I can do it with my own stuff too. And that's what kind of put me over the edge. I was like, it's like even if it's not great, I can try to sell it as best as I can. Um, so anyways, yeah. So just, you know what you want from the piece more than anybody else would. So I just want more of us, in the spirit of this idea of the traveling musician with, who's ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Um, you're also allowed to just bring your own art with you too. I did a lot of uh, commissioning, and I still do. But it's a different thing. It's a different thing. And Claire and Steve, they've done a lot of it, and I'm influenced by them very heavily when I do take that route. But also someone like Peter, who I don't know the last time he's played someone else's music, to be honest. Um, Peter Evans, sorry, just to do you guys know? Am I saying names that like maybe you guys don't? I have a bad habit of just referring to people if you don't, it's okay. I can send you like some info on them. And the people who I'm talking about, like sort of all of them in a way have changed my life and like my outlook. So like I'm happy to talk about them as much as anybody wants to, or so, like share links or whatever. Okay, so I will send you some stuff, Timothy. Sorry, Tim. I don't know. I'm calling you Timothy. Everybody calls you Tim, but your thing says Timothy, so then I just reflexively say Timothy.
Oh, that's okay. It's okay. I get it all the time.
Okay, so we can talk some more on our own. But I just I want to get you started with this. So there is a very famous YouTube of Steven Schick performing Vinco Globocar's Corporel. And it's a piece for the human body. So start there, and then like we can sort of be in touch. But I mean that's like sort of like the ultimate like traveling, music, right? Like no instrument. This is just like I'm gonna hit myself, and that's what sound it makes. And Peter Evans, I'll just write his name so you know. Peter is a trumpet player. He's part of the International Contemporary Ensemble, and that's how we first met. But we also have an album together now, and he's an improviser in the ways that like I didn't realize existed until I got involved with ICE. And basically, what he can do is he'll go and stand in front of an audience by himself with a trumpet and leave everybody stunned and breathless, and that's like it. So it's like super powerful, right? And Claire Chase. So Claire, she's a flutist, but she also founded the International Contemporary Ensemble. So okay. I lost my train of thought, but that's where I wanted to leave it anyway. I wanted to leave it with me just saying, especially now, and especially if you like, I'm not going to write the next Bach chaconne for horn, but maybe that's a good thing, because we already have a chaconne. And so like we just have to like, I don't know, practice more trust, or at least I'd say we, I mean me, to practice more trust in myself as an artist fully. And that includes like creating my own music and just, and just going with it. Does anybody have any thoughts? Wait, somebody wrote something. Oh, thanks, Lara. Thank you guys for, allowing me to talk for a little bit. I know I kind of skipped around, but it's kind of a weird subject with a lot of, I don't know, moving parts, and a lot of different influences. Any questions? How we all doing? Is everybody doing all right? We're almost done with the zFestival, right? It's like almost finished.
About a week and a half left, yeah.
Oh, there's much more than I thought.
We're getting to the point where everybody's submitting recordings, though, so the bulk of the work is done.
Nice.
But yeah, I guess we can open it up more broadly to questions, have a little bit of a discussion, and maybe in a bit take it down off YouTube and chat me personally or something like that. I don't know what you're feeling.
Yeah, I this talk was very sort of like one-laned with some sort of tangents, but I'm happy to talk about other things too. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I feel like I need that right now. I feel like I need some meditation in my life. I don't know.
Hmm.
I've never felt it as much as I felt it right now.
Hmm.
So let's do it.
Yeah. One more thing, which was I think what you said about like being more confident like as an artist in general is pretty much something that probably like a lot of us can take away from this, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. Well, it's hard because I don't know if you're like me, you're like always comparing yourself to people, which is just like so dangerous and
Yeah, I
so
try not to do that. It inevitably happens like to some degree, but I guess if you're like kind of doing your own thing, there's less danger,
yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, this is quite the portrait of you in
Oh,
there.
yeah. The mail truck's about to come, so I've moved outside with her
Ah, okay.
because
Does she
it
go
gives.
ballistic when the mail comes? Is that why? Or, like,
Yeah, and well, the important thing is it's a highlight of her day
ah,
because
okay.
they bring her a treat.
No way. Where are
Yeah,
you?
so Boston.
Your
Although,
mailman
like,
brings you dog treats?
yes,
That's
well, it brings
amazing.
her dog treats, and it's
Well,
like a highlight of the day. Well, I don't see the truck yet, but my mom like called me to tell me that it was going to be here soon, which is why I moved outside.
okay.
So now we're here.
I think the suspense is killing us now.
Might be a bit because they're not here yet, but
Hmm.
yeah, if it does happen, it'll happen and you'll get to see it. Anyway, you get to see her looking really excited.
Perhaps while we wait, David, maybe could you talk a little bit more about um, developing narratives within your pieces? I know that storytelling and telling stories is something that you've brought up before,
Yeah.
and just what kind of stories you're trying to tell and how you craft them using like the
Well,
techniques, you know.
yeah, I've come to a place. When did we talk about this 2 months ago? I've totally come to a different place now. Um, I've come to a place where now I kind of, because I also write poetry, and so I kind of feel like rather than programming it into the music that I'm writing, like the story and like making it the musical painting or stuff like that. Um, I I think I'm just starting to do this thing. You know how like some people on their website they'll just have like music and then they'll just have this other thing they do and then this other thing they do. I think I'm moving to a place where my performances are just going to be kind of like that. It's going to be like a live website. It's gonna be me, and then I'm just presenting my music and my poetry. It's gonna be like that. I think the narrative, I I kind of feel in a time where like communication is so hard, and language is becoming impossible. Um, I feel we have a real advantage as musicians in that we're doing something so abstract. I don't want to lose that. I kind of want to cling to that as much as possible. The idea that like, you know, we're going to take away, like everybody takes away something different, and I'm not going to dictate what you're going to get from this. Um, I'm sort of staying away from making the narrative clear to the listener. Um, so so I guess in a way gotten I've gotten away from like the idea of like a narrative. But when you write words, so like if I include my poetry, there will be words and there will be associations. But even that side of I think part of the reason I'm drawn to poetry is because of how abstract it is. So I, I think that yeah, I do feel like we have an advantage in that we can present just something beautiful that connects people, or beautiful doesn't have to be the word that applies, but art that just by the shared experience is connecting people, and that's it. Because so much is being confused, and mistakes are being made all the time right now with language, and so I'm, I wash my hands of it. Sorry, there's some chats I missed. Oh yeah, yeah. I like the idea of it being a live website too. Like, yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question about the narrative thing, but yeah, I've kind of like I'd like like to keep it foggy at this point.
I personally like that idea just because. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I personally like that idea a lot because I really like the idea of like interesting concert experiences. So, like the idea of putting together something that's not just music
Right.
straight
Right.
up is really cool for me.
Yeah. I was first moved to do this by Stephen Chick, actually. So, you know, speaking of Paganini, most people, like if they play, a solo concert, their encore will come out and be like, da, 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 hey. And Steve also always, well, almost always, whenever I've seen him perform, his encore is always a poem, and uh, it's also by fully memorized. He has a whole thing on memory. If you get a chance to read his book, or he talks about it in certain talks too. He has like a whole thing with memory. He does the memory palace method in association with other things. It gets pretty deep, but like whenever he conducts us, I think the score is usually memorized. It's insane. But it was so striking when he came out and as an encore did just recited a Wendell Berry poem, that it was just like, I don't know. It's like, yes, why aren't we all just doing this? It makes so much sense. Oh wait, I missed something.
I have a question, if I can ask.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of us are stuck at home, and so some of us are making the transition to like living digital musical lives. I'm a little behind the curve, but I'm just starting to get into it like this month and before getting
Mhm.
into virtual projects. The first few months I was at home, I was basically a hermit and just studying lots of scores. But what kind of words do you have to say on your experience in this realm, like transitioning to digital existence as a musician?
Um, well, well, on one hand, it's forcing us to know some things that we probably should have just gone ahead and tackled. Um, you know, for one reason or the other, you become more familiar with these things as you go along. But just as the nature of playing an acoustic instrument, a lot of us go a long time without dealing with any of this, right? Like we usually have somebody who does it for us or something like that. So don't shy away from it, because now's the time where we're all making mistakes, right? Like everybody's messing it up. So if you're worried that you're gonna do something wrong, that's not like now's not the time, because we're all messing it up. Um, those of us who haven't really done it much, and I include myself in that. Like that mic stand I just got yesterday. Um, and so you know, I don't know if I have any like words of wisdom, but just on a personal note, the recording that I did that you saw, it was outside. I think there's a lot of opportunity for uh, once you get this technology under your fingers, don't just do it at home, I guess is what I'm saying. Like take it outside, take it somewhere, be part of nature, even though make it as mobile as possible. That's personally my goal, is to make it as mobile as I can, so that I can just have the open air available to me. Um, and oh, sorry, there's a dynamic mic. I do have a handheld Zoom. I also am okay with taking my laptop with me if I need to live process something. But um, yeah, most of the time I'll just take two mics, just because, especially I don't know if you noticed in the singing meditation, I'm still fooling with the setup to try to maximize the vocal resonance, because it's hard, because like the thing we discovered is most of the sound is coming out of the bell, even with the voice. So it's kind of a hard thing to get around. Um, and yeah, so I'm still fooling with that. But I guess the main thing that I would say is like experiment as much as you can right now, just because everybody is sort of in the same place. Like we're all kind of with the exception of like a few of us, we're all kind of just like getting our feet wet in this. Did I answer that? I can't. I don't know if
I mean,
I
yeah,
answered.
yeah, definitely. No, I'm like very interested because a lot of people are taking very different approaches, right? Because some people I know are doing more of these like virtual projects or like getting into zFest, and some people are like just studying a lot, but studying with friends over Zoom. Like I know a conductor who like got like a score study student, which I think is wild. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we all have our own ways of adapting. And
Yeah. Yeah.
earlier this month, I think 2 Fridays ago, Lisa Moore, the pianist, right, gave a talk, and she said something like, I don't know if we'll be in concert halls till 2022. And I just heard that and I was like, oh my God. But she might be right. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, in all honesty, I don't know, at least the next 3 quarter, like we'll continue to figure out, like, I mean, people are, right? Like you're seeing it every day online, like people are figuring it out and like ways to do things and keep us connected and keep people involved in music. And it's actually been quite brilliant, just like in the face of, I don't know, pretty extreme adversity as far as like what we do. Like not being able to sit next to each other is limiting, to say the least. So you know, I I would just put more emphasis on like figuring out what you can do and just maximizing that, because um oh boy. Um yeah. Once we do get back together, it's going to be great, but for now, like we have to the hard part is just going to keeping the engine running and explore, like keeping the curiosity out there and exploring these new things.
I have a question off of that.
Hmm.
So, for this upcoming school year, because as wind players, we can't play all together. Fortunately, I'm rooming with a hornist. So, do you know any bassoon and horn duos?
I do. Do you have my email? Does everybody have my email?
I guess maybe someone can post that on Slack or something.
Yeah. We can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
We can also post it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have a bunch of barking in a moment here if you all want to hear it. Here we go.
Yes, we finally get to witness it.
Wow. That was exciting.
Yes. I'll turn my sound off.
I can see why that could be a large part of her day. That's wholesome.
I mean, I don't see a lot of people in a day, so I would feel like that dog too if I got to see someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, look at that dog walking.
Oh man, I know so many people who got pets in the past few months. Not me, sadly. I want one, but I don't know. Eventually. Um, well, I guess if there's no more questions, does anybody have any other thoughts? Um, I appreciate you guys letting me talk to you today and sort of like in a way live hash out my present headspace.
Is there anything else you would like say to encourage people to maybe do similar meditation things on their instrument?
Hmm. Um,
And by extension, how would you start like a meditation like that? Would you base it off of, say, a piece of poetry, or just like where your mind is?
so a couple of things. So I try to get my students to dedicate a few minutes every day to just playing around on their horn. Sometimes I'll call it improvising, but if I want to make it seem like super just like chill and stress-free, I'll just say like play around on your horn and see what happens. And you know, most of what I'm writing in one way or another um, comes from that. So like it comes from like developed improvised material. Um, so like I'll do something and say, and like that'll start the idea, and then I'll write based on that, and then I'll maybe go back to it, back and forth. Um, and So just as far as like the practical like writing of it, there's a large uh, improvisatory aspect to it, and then there's where I'm trying what I'm trying to accomplish, right? Trying to stay on track with that. Uh, and the the main thing though really has to do with the desire to like of connecting. So I largely will start from a place of trying to relay a mood. So like each of them will sort of like have like a different kind of like I don't know, like a mood to them in a way. Um, and so like if you have like kind of those things, like I have like a desired headspace that I'm a desired mood, desired atmosphere. Um, what was the other thing? Oh, um, a desire to like just like the goal of reaching others with that, and then um, playing around on my horn, and then seeing what happens in that space, and then sort of taking notes and going from that. Bye, Seamus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, unless anyone has any other questions, I feel like now's a good time as any to take it down off YouTube. And if we want to keep chatting afterwards, of course we can. But yeah.